There you go.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad y'all can join us tonight. We're going to be talking about the Flora fires tonight. There's a lot of controversy about everything from the reward to the investigations to comments being made. Also, is it linked to other deaths such as Delphi murders? And there's just so much going on in that county. It makes you feel sorry not only for the victims and the families of the victims, but also for the community. And, you know, there was lawsuits, and there's still continuing lawsuits on the Flora fires, and everything from the 911 information to the recent controversy about the reward fund. But we're going to be talking about that tonight. And also we'll be talking about some other channels out there that are focusing on this. I think Marv and Frank are going to have a show after mine. They'll be talking about some of the depositions on this. So most certainly catch that. And then also we're going to be in the chat section, going to be highlighting a channel out there that deserves to be recognized. I don't know if y'all get a chance, go check out True Crime with Sunshine. She does remarkable work, does a lot of stuff for missing and persons, flyers. She's just recently went past her 500 mark, so she could get her platform and community page up on Facebook and YouTube also. But most certainly check her out. But anyway, we'll get into our show tonight.
Hold on 1 second.
Uh-oh.
I'm working the Google machine.
Miss Steve's getting it going.
All right. I put the link out there. I hope that link works.
Okay.
I'm still learning this here Google machine thing. So here we go.
But anyway, brief introduction. I'm Steve. I'm retired law enforcement, 20 years. Started off in the jail, worked my way on the road and into investigations. During those 20 years, I've worked all type of details, everything from SWAT, counter sniper, entry team leader, became a state certified crime scene technician, which helped immensely in my investigative career, and during which I worked all types of crimes from simple burglaries all the way up to homicides. But I retired and still talk to a lot of my old friends and do some consulting and speak to them about crimes and things. And but tonight we're going to be focusing on a case that happened in 2016, the Flora fire. A lot of people know about this because there's been a lot of interest. Was this is it connected to the Delphi murders? Because it only happened within the same community a short time prior to Libby and Abby's murder in the February of the following year. But on November 21st, these four little children were asleep in a upstairs part of their residence when a fire occurred on the lower floor. And unfortunately, they perished in the fire. Law enforcement arrived on the scene first, attempted to rescue. They failed to be able to get to where the children were. The mother also tried to and suffered some injuries and was taken to the hospital. Just a tragedy all the way around. And since that time, along with the Delphi murders, which was another tragedy within the same community, there's been a lot of speculation. We're going to address some of that speculation as far as what law enforcement looks at, or do they consider them linked or not? And from the statements made by law enforcement, they don't consider them linked. And if you look at some of the other information on it as we go through here, we'll be discussing some of those facts and looking at manner of death, time frames, and some of the law enforcement statements of which way they believe that the investigation should go and everything. But like I say, you can look at these four little beautiful children, and it's just such a loss for that family and that community.
Shout out to the Bible group, $25.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And get ready for Saturday night because we're going to have something to show you.
Yeah, we got, she wants me to finally turn on something. Yeah.
We got something coming.
But thank you, sir, for your support, or group for your support. The mother, Galen Rose here, says that when she woke up, the whole house was full of smoke. You couldn't really see that. She tried to save her babies and just failed. And she tried to get help. And as you can see here, that her neighbor dialed 911. And then when the officers arrived, they went over and over again into the house trying to save these children. And one of the officers was injured and passed out inside and had to be rescued by a fellow officer. It's just one of those tragedies that, although in law enforcement, we quite often do arrive at house fires prior to fire departments, and especially when it's volunteer fire departments. And there's certain procedures that we do in law enforcement to prep it and do some canvassing, trying to find out if there's victims and stuff. And if they are, whatever rescues that we might be able to accomplish, we try to do. And just like these officers did. But sadly, they failed to be able to rescue these children. But here's just a little bit of the map, of the overview of where the house was to where the fire department, Flora Fire Department was. It's a volunteer fire department, and you look at the screen here, and you're only like a block and a half away from the fire department. But being volunteer, and actually one of the officers was a volunteer fireman, was able to go and get some oxygen tanks and return back to the house and try to enter with them. It was only gone for a couple of 3 minutes. And so kudos for him for using his thinking and trying to get in there and exhausting what he thought was the best ways of getting in there. But there were some other miscues that occurred that shouldn't have occurred or has occurred. And it's not to cast blame on anyone, but most certainly there's a lot of controversy that to be looked at. In some cases, it's rightly so, because certain things happen and the timeline is sad. That if certain steps had been taken in the proper order and certain people had made certain calls in the proper order, possibly, 5 or 6 minutes in a house fire is the world. And especially in some of these older residentials that are just basically almost, once a fire starts, it's like, gas fire. I mean, they just explode because they're made from them older, flammable. They don't have the drywalls or the certain things that are in modern types and designs that will inhibit the spread of fire. Some of these older houses and things, like I said, they can go up in an instant, which was pretty much the case in this one, which, as they've got it classified as arson, and they was able to determine that accelerants were used, that most certainly condemned anyone that was in that house, that if you got out of this house from the time it started, you're extremely lucky. But here's part of the timeline that talks about when Galen was awakened by the presence of smoke in her bedroom. She was on the first floor, and she tried to attempt to rescue her children up on the second floor, and she was forced to escape. Her neighbors awakened, and they called an alert the home owner, which was Joshua Ayers, and then they dialed 911. And this was a critical time frame here, that at 3:28, and from what they say is a possibly cell phone timestamp, is when the call was made to the homeowner. And then at 3:34 is the first call that connects with 911. That's a 6-minute time frame. That if that timestamp is correct, or if that whatever the reasoning was to put it 3:28 on this, is absolutely, 6 minutes. Like I said, is if the officer were able to get there 3 or 4 or 5 minutes earlier, who knows? Because the mother was there prior and she couldn't get up there. But, being that the officers may have been able, especially with the volunteer fireman, what could he have done with another 4 or 5 minutes? We don't know. We'll never know, sadly. But here's some of the 911 transcripts, and they talk about when the first officers arrive and what they saw and who they tried to call and ask for mutual aid from other fire departments and EMS and EMTs to arrive on the scene. And you know, you can see here from 3:36 when they first arrive, all the way to when at 3:39 here when the fire chief Adam Randall requests mutual aid. He's not on the scene yet, but he's requesting aid. So whenever he's made aware of the situation, he goes ahead and starts, you know, knowing the residential areas and everything, that what are we going to need, and especially if there's victims in the house, what resources can we bring? And you know, he knows how to fight fires, and he understands that, and that in certain parts, in certain neighborhoods, one fire can endanger other nearby residences and people and persons. And he most certainly, at that point, while he's en route, made a request for additional aid. Then you go on to the second page of all the information here, and you look at it at 3:46, after all the dispatches and EMS and fire start arriving, and fire suppression water application begins at 3:46. And, you know, that 20 minutes, as far as the fire department, I know that's a long time, but especially when one of the fire departments is only a block and a half away. And I hope they have addressed those issues. But being volunteer fire departments, you know, you got to get up, you got to go. And most certainly, I'm hoping that some changes have been made to assist that community. But looking at this residence, you can see it's an older residence. It's multiple floors from the downstairs. And actually, there's watching some of the videos by other creators and things, that at one point, an officer attempted to go up the back steps, and but he had received information from what I saw that the children were out, and so he regressed back down. If he had continued on, who knows what would have been the results of. It may have been the exact same results. Might have been another officer lost. We'll never know. But if you look at some of the information that's included in some of the other YouTube people that's created content on this, you'll see, whereas there's a lot of information, what part of it is true, what part of it is not. We'll probably never know the full extent of everything that went on that night. But here was layout of the residence, and when you look and you evaluate how the officers responded, and they went in on the front porch, dropped down below the smoke level, crawled in. One of the officers says that in the kitchen area, he was able to see that there was fire in the middle of the floor, which was a very odd statement for fire being in the middle of the floor. Was that from the accelerant? Was that something that had dropped down from the ceiling, landed in the middle of the floor, and was burning? As an investigator that's worked a lot of crime scenes, arson is a totally different type of crime scene. These firefighters, arson investigators, they receive a lot of training just in the understanding fires, because you're dealing with a semi-destroyed crime scene. That if arson is involved, accelerants are involved, that there's always going to be chemical compounds, and the recovery of those take specialized techniques. I was never trained in it. I worked with some great arson investigators, and they have their own type of equipment. They have certain cans, and the processing of evidence in arson fires is done by specialized people that understand the chemistries and are able to go in there and search for certain accelerants, and because there's a lot of accelerants out there, and there's some accelerants that some of these arsons used. Back in the when I was in school after I graduated, I had a friend of mine that turned out to be an arsonist, and he got killed during the arson fire. He used gasoline, went into a house, spread the gasoline, and when he lit the match, it killed him due to the fumes and stuff. The exact compounds that was used in this house, I have no idea. But when my friend was killed, when he was doing that, I had no idea. We'd already graduated, and I was shocked when I found out how he had died. Never ever thought that he had the personality that would do such a thing. And is that the case with this? Because you'll see in some of the statements made by law enforcement that they regard this and it's placed as arson, but some of the mannerisms, and when you read what they're talking about, that and they say certain things such as, we believe the fires were set, but it wasn't with the intent to kill anyone. And that is a very confusing statement. And once again, with this community that's in Carroll County, and as with the Delphi murders being confusing, when they make statements like that, you're talking about 4 o'clock, 3 something to 4 o'clock in the morning, a fire being set in a house that's occupied, that most certainly if anyone does something and creates a fire on purpose, then, and it's classified as arson, how do you back away from that and say, well, they didn't mean to kill anyone? Well, they started a fire. I mean, make up your mind when you clarify and when you classify these things, that if it is arson, that if death comes from it, it's not that they didn't mean to. If it's an accidental fire, then that's a different matter. And so it kind of makes you leads you down a path that they have certain people that they believe possibly involved in this. And when you see what Carter said, and when you see what Hallman says, you'll see that they're more going towards, they have persons of interest, and they're leaning towards a certain avenue of who might possibly be involved with the fires. I don't know if that's true or not. Don't know if that's just their best guess, but they most certainly made certain statements that lead you to believe that they have a certain perspective of how the fire was started and why, and that wasn't with the intent to kill these children. And but it really doesn't matter. If accelerants were used and the house was set afire, I really don't have any pity on whoever started the fire, because if children's upstairs and something happens, you got to be held to the highest standard. And playing games and word games of what they're trying to say on that isn't really fair to the community, and isn't fair to these children that lost their lives.
Housekeeping, no names.
Okay, no names, no initials, no names, for the fact that this is an unsolved case. It's a cold case, and we don't want to drive anyone that may be able to give a tip or give information. We don't want to harm that investigation and influence someone that, oh, so-and-so is the one that did it. You may be able to do that on other channels and stuff, but we really don't want to do that on this channel. And I appreciate y'all cooperating with us and doing so and being respectful of that. But the timeline of events is that from the time the fire occurred, November the 21st, and these 4 children, and I won't dishonor the names of the family because I don't know the proper pronunciation of how you would say these names, and I don't want to. There's some people out there that probably could pronounce them flawlessly, but I do not want to dishonor the family. Yeah, and my Georgia accent, and I don't even want to attempt that. Yeah. But like I said, they're 4 beautiful young children, and they didn't deserve to die in a house fire in 2016. But anyway, it was a fire originally ruled undetermined. Just a couple months later, a fire marshal says it's intentionally set, which just blew up the community. They didn't realize that, and so now we have an arson fire that was originally undetermined. And later on, once again, it's ruled intentional. And then a strange thing happened that Carroll County prosecutor asked the investigators not to release certain information. And there was lawsuits filed, Freedom of Information Act on 911 stuff. It's still in controversy to this day. That's going through the appeal courts. And like I said, it's just an injustice to the community that these things happen. And now with the newer controversy, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, on the reward fund is yet another thing. And that's what part of this show is about, is that that there's so much controversy. It dishonors these children. It dishonors the trust in law enforcement. And it shouldn't be that way. And fire department, arson investigators, everyone should be working for one thing. And the way that certain things were set up and certain things have happened to this day, I just don't understand the political atmosphere in that community. It just makes no sense to me anyway. But then we had resignations that started occurring after this, all the way from the state fire marshal's resignation to the Carroll County Ives resigning. A new prosecutor takes the post, and now we have a new fire chief. But when you're investigating these fires, and that started and understanding that some of this controversy is created by the investigation that started from the get-go, there's no mysteries about how to handle any type of investigations. All you out there that want to look at certain investigative techniques or understand how to conduct certain investigations, all you got to do is go to the National Institute of Justice. They have a guide for everybody. Law enforcement uses these. Some of the now with the new technologies and how everything is updated constantly, and we have the internet. Some of these journals and some of these hardback books and stuff and manuals aren't updated and republished. They're basically held online, and this is an older version for a guide for investigating fire and arson. But a lot of the techniques they use in that is very similar to cold case investigations, homicide investigations. But if you go into NIJ, you can look up a guide for investigating almost any type of crime, from cold case, homicide, fires, drownings. It doesn't matter. They have a manual for it. And just some information for any of you that are curious about how to go out there and look at some of this stuff. But as you can see, that part of the NIJs on the arson investigations, they have everything covered from the time that when fire department personnel arrive, of certain steps that should be taken. Just like with law enforcement, when we arrive on scene, that there's a body involved, that we look at that is a death investigation. And so as being a death investigation, we at that time don't know if it's a natural death. Is it a suicide? Is it a murder? Is it accidental? I mean, there's so many different ways and mannerisms of death that I'm sure that that firemen, much like law enforcement, when they go to a fire, I'm sure they have certain procedures that as they fight the fire. Of course, they're trying to always, just like with law enforcement, when we first get on the scene, we're trying to save life first. If there's anything to do to save life first, that's what we do. Doesn't matter what else is happening. Everything else can be, evidence can be destroyed, all the other stuff. But if there's a chance to save life, that's what the first responders' first duty is. At all means, try to do everything you can to save life. Sometimes we fail, but sometimes we're successful. And so fire department and fire personnel, they're going to be doing the same thing. They have certain duties to doing certain things to make sure that life is preserved first. And then, of course, trying to save structures and properties would fall in line. But and if they go by the book, they can preserve a lot of evidence. And when things are, shortcuts are taken, that's when you lose evidence. And things, and once you lose it, you ain't gonna find it again. I mean, once it's gone, it's gone. You may get lucky and find partials, but you won't ever, you just don't take shortcuts on anything. And not that I'm a fireman in any shape, form, or fashion. I have the utmost respect for them. Law enforcement, it never bothered me facing a man with a gun. Never bothered me if they had knives or if it was multiple opponents. Not a big deal. But I'm not. Fire is something that I have great respect for, and I never had to go into a burning building. Although I went to some smoky rooms and stuff and pulled power meters and cleared certain areas, but never went into a fully involved building. But I watched a lot of brave men do it with the fire department, and I stood in awe and that these guys would do anything and everything. It is very humbling to watch these men in action. But there are certain procedures that they'll follow and make sure that they're going to protect certain evidence and stuff that once they try to do, and they follow the procedures that they proceed through. But in this article here that was released November 22nd, it says the fatal Flora fires are ruled incendiary, and meaning that they had found some type of accelerant. I think there's been some news on what types, and I'm not going to get into different types or where it was, but there was at one point that it was in numerous locations, and then it was argued and reassigned that it actually was just down to one spot, that the accelerants were actually only in one spot. And the person that had originally made the proclamation that it was everywhere, and I don't know what his definition of everywhere is, but he resigned, and after it was only in one spot. So there was, that's controversy in and of itself, but does it really matter? Once a accelerant is found and you got it classified as arson, is it really worth the argument that one or two? I don't know, but they most certainly it's created an atmosphere of controversy. There was letters that, or this was an email that Randall first sent out. Dennis Randall, who was worked for the Fire Marshal State, and that sent out talking about needing the public's help, information that this was an arson fire. Then there was a private investigator that went in that had a lot of training and sent another letter in saying that no, he was wrong, that I'm right, and that we can't classify it with this until we do this. And once again, some of the law enforcement weren't aware of this differing of opinion until they were presented the case by news agencies. And that's anytime that you have controversy and the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing, and you have confidence in certain investigators, but you find that certain things weren't covered or may have been overstated, that it creates great conflict and speculation, and law enforcement officers lose a lot of respect, or people lose a lot of confidence in the law enforcement. And so it's sad that the deaths of these children are overshadowed by the great community speculation and debates and everything. It's just absolutely unbelievable. But here's the director, Carter, who's over at Indiana State Police. And he makes a statement during one of his many interviews addressing Flora. And he says, we have to get access to the entire family, period. When he made that statement, and in the context he made it, and y'all can go out there and watch him and pull up these interviews, and that when he starts saying that we need the entire family, it means that they don't have all the information and what family members. What part of the family do you need to talk to? Why are you saying family? Why do you suspect? And why would that impede your investigation, not being able to speak to the whole family? as a law enforcement officer, I know which angle he's going after. Is that correct? I don't know, but most certainly that's the angle that he is looking at. That, and as we look at, is this related to the Delphi murders? If you go by this statement here, and by the way that he's leaning, and when he makes this statement, then it leaning away from the Delphi linkage. That there's no way, shape, form, or fashion in his mind when he makes this statement there. And you'll see in a few minutes of another statement he makes that even further enhances and that how strong he feels that they're not linked. The other investigator here, which is also involved with the Delphi murders, and he says we do have a solid persons of interest in this case. And so at some point in the investigation that he, as Indiana State Police investigator, that he has strong feelings about not only what caused the fire, but who caused the fire. And that, because that's a strong statement that when you do have solid persons of interest in this case, and then your boss man is also saying we need to talk to certain individuals, all the family, all the family going to be supporting witnesses towards a certain individual? We don't know yet. At some point, if they continue along this line, and if they do finally step forward and make an arrest, we'll find that out at that point. But when you got two of the leading law enforcement officers that's involved in both cases making these statements, it further divides, because if you have a solid person of interest in this case, if the cases were connected, such as Delphi and Flora, then you would have suspects in both cases. And when you see what Superintendent Doug Carter says here, that he looks forward to the day that I can look into the eyes of at least two killers from a very small community. So he's looking at that these are two incidents separated, and we have two different killers. If he had said, I'm looking into the eyes of both cases at one killer, then that is a total different meaning. But this is their opinion. There's a lot of speculation, and there's a lot of creators out there that have linked the cases in many different ways, and they have arguments of why they may be linked. Each of their own, I don't know. But from what I've looked at, because you have to look at the manner of deaths, arsonists, while they're deranged and psychopathic, because you can have these people that go out there, cause fire damage, create these, and they enjoyed watching the fires. I've had the privilege of catching arsonists in the act on stakeouts, and but they have certain habits and they do certain things. And back in years ago, when we still had pay phones, we was able to stake out, because we had certain arsonists that he used the same phone every time. And we had at that time an operator that the guy didn't have any money to operate the phone, and so he did a collect call to our office, and the operator was able, that she stayed online, and as soon as she heard what he was saying about starting a fire and was going to kill officers when they arrived, that we had a location for the next time. And so we were sitting there for the next time when he came in, and he made that phone call, and he was quite surprised when we stepped out on him. But it was a different time frame. We're looking at a different race. We're looking at a different MO and manner of death. And so I agree with Carter and them with what information I've seen, limited information, because I don't have all the information, although there's some new information coming out. I think Marvin Franklin are going to be covering some of the deposition tonight, and some of the information is going to be in that. And I have another individual that contacted me this week that is looking at and reviewing some of the information, and hopefully I'll be able to get with him, and we'll do a continuation and do a very deep dive, in depth of the review of all the from the response, the firefighters understanding what steps were taken that night, and what that means as far as the investigation going on. But the way I'm looking at it right now, it doesn't appear to me that the Delphi and the Flora fire are connected. Now we come to the latest controversy that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when this first occurred, 5.5 years ago, that when this first occurred, they started getting the reward fund up. And that's a great part of why I created this video tonight and talking about is that the reward fund, that for whatever reason, they agreed that after 5 years that this reward fund could be turned over to the fire department and taken away from the being a reward for information, which is strange. And like I said, once again, I do not understand the political environment in that county. I'm sure that when they did that, they had some type of reasoning of why they would do it. But just the appearance that, you know, here's $18,000 that if it's not solved, you get. I mean, you know, it's almost that people can argue that, well, if we don't do anything, if we don't work the arson investigation, in 5 years we get $18,000. It's just a bad appearance, and I know that when they created that, they didn't mean that, but that's some of the information and some of the people and opinions that has been sent to me that people said, you know, this is the feeling we have, and I'm sure when the reward fund was first founded and they gave all that money towards it, that wasn't their intent, and I will always argue against, and even with the people that sent me the emails and stuff about that I don't believe that's the intent. And I believe that the fire department, the arson investigators, the state officials, they all want to solve the case. And for whatever reason, they're just unable to, just like with Delphi, of not having whatever investigators or techniques or anything that are conducive to finding who started this fire and killed these young children. But with that being said, Fox 59, which is involved in part of the lawsuits and stuff, they have this $20,000 reward fund that's being given to the Florida Fire Department. That if you call them, email them, contact them, and because I just checked today and there's no new updates that this won't take place. Hopefully the fire officials and the fire department would do the right thing, that pressure can be applied and they not accept the money or turn it back over or whatever can be done. But most certainly anyone and everyone out there that's watching this, contact Fox 59, let them know where you stand on this, send them emails, whatever, and so that they can address this issue, keep the money there, because if it does take this reward to solve this, these children deserve every opportunity for this case to be solved. But here's a reward that is offered by the International Association of Arson Investigators, and they have where it's $5,000. And of course, Indiana State Police, that this same reward poster is hosted on their site. So that's the link of arson investigators. It's classified as arson. Indiana State Police still maintains it as arson, although they make statements and allude to the fact that they don't believe the person meant to kill them. Just conflicting and strange information. But most certainly, if you have any information on this, contact them, let them know. And regardless, you know, if your tip is, if you don't think it means anything, still call it in. I mean, if you saw something or have heard something, only the investigators know what really is important. And so reach out to them and report any suspicious activities or anything that you've heard in the community now, and so that we can try to get justice for these four babies. All right.
Mm. All right, get you some water.
Got coffee tonight.
Oh, my bad.
I like coffee.
So what number cup is that today?
About 5.
Okay.
At least 5.
There you go. All right, here we go. Let's see here. True Crime with Shannon. Yes, there is so much going on in Carroll County.
I just don't understand.
Keeping him busy.
I don't understand them. It's a mystery to me.
And the Bible group.
Thanks, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you, group.
Appreciate that. All right. And all these hellos. How is everybody? Everybody's looking good. Google machine so far has done okay, but I haven't, had to venture off too bad. Arctic Fox True Crime. Hey, Steve, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fine, Arctic Fox, and I like what you and Levelhead and True Crime with Sunshine are doing for the community. Arctic Fox here is another channel that we'll be looking at, and most certainly check them out because they do a lot of things with their real crime research, and they speak out, and they're doing some really good things out there also.
All right. True Crime with Shannon. I've been covering this case as well. Important stuff.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right. Let's see here. True Crime with Shannon. Thank you for your service as an LE.
It was an honor.
I got a long one.
Yes, I got to meet some really good people in my career. And sadly, as far as law enforcement, you meet when you're out there on patrol or you're responding to calls. The good people you meet are always victims, and so you very rarely get to see the really good people of the community that they're having a good day, because usually you're at their home when they come in from work and they've been burglarized or a family member's dead or has been harmed, and so it's just a different perspective from the law enforcement when we deal with really good people. And I look back on it now and think, man, those were some different times, and now I talk to people and look at them from a different light.
All right. And True Crime with Shannon, I feel like these girls don't get enough attention.
And that's one of the reasons I did this show tonight. And primary reason I did this show tonight is that I didn't like what was happening with the reward fund. And I don't agree with that. And that whoever did this, that created this fire for whatever reason they did, that these girls deserve justice.
All right, Molly, such beautiful little girls, absolute monster that would do this.
It is. I mean, regardless if it was whatever was the reason that fire was started, whatever the reason for that accelerant to be present, it's just unbelievable.
All right, and Tammy Crimes, I remember these poor children. That's heartbreaking. Just Mike, the home was appraised a week before fire. Could that person be of interest in Flora arson murder?
I've seen where the timeline was that it was from months or two ahead to a week before. I've seen all kind of versions of what that timeline was, but law enforcement most certainly will have looked at those links, anything and everything of all the people involved. And like I said, Carter and the person of interest by Holman most certainly, indicate that they're not looking at them being linked. Now, other people may look at them as persons of interest, but it appears that the Carroll County and Indiana State Police are not looking at them as being linked.
All right. And Arctic Fox, such a sad story.
Absolutely.
It is a tearjerker, no doubt. True Crime with Shannon. We need to find out who did this.
Absolutely.
Boy, that'd be awesome. All right. And let's see here.
I can't wait to see all the depositions that have come out. And I think Frank told me tonight that they have like 600 pages that they have that they've got. And like I said, my contact that I spoke to a few days ago, he didn't tell me how many pages and what exactly all the information he has, but he did mention that he was looking at the depositions also. But I can't wait to see some of that information, and then I'll do a law enforcement breakdown of some of those depositions.
And Molly, that poor mother, no amount of justice will end her grief. Wished I could give her a hug.
Yes.
She could probably use it.
They say no parent should ever bury a child.
That's the truth. All right. And Lisa, house had a bad and confusing layout to get upstairs.
Yeah, I think, they had converted it into a multi-family duplex rental arrangement, which was confusing, I'm sure, to the officers and everyone else.
Molly, my father saw a fire when he was in his late teens. The kids on the second floor were screaming for help. He ran into the house, but the fire was too hot and burning him. He never got over that. I don't know how you.
No, I wouldn't either. Yeah, I worked some deaths that involved arson, and that the arson investigators handled a lot of part of it, but I handled some of the death part of it, and even vehicle fires where people died in vehicle fires, which is another terrible situation.
I'm not sure what that means. Just Mike, I got unredacted version.
Yes. Email me again. And
just Mike.
I think that's him. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. True Crime with Shannon at True Crime Web. Yes, that 6 minutes was a big deal.
Absolutely. Like I said, the one volunteer firefighter was a policeman, and he was injured quite. I don't even know if there was a time that was if he was going to survive this or not.
Look at here. Checking convictions. Hello, new to the channel.
Hello, Checking Conviction. She also Art at Fox and True Crime with Sunshine and Level-Headed. They all work together, and they look at it as real crime, and they very interesting stuff and conversations they have.
Glad to have you. Let's see here.
I watch a lot of channels. I go out there, and there's a lot of channels out there to be appreciated and to get information from, and most certainly open your eyes out and go out there and support these channels because there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of good stuff.
And when he says he watches videos, oh my goodness.
I do.
All the time. Molly, wow, 20 minutes. That is too long. But don't know how volunteer departments work, meaning how fast should they be? But 1.5 blocks away, water should have come faster.
I'm sure that you could look up what the average response time for. I know in law enforcement what the average response times are a lot of times, and they would be able to tell what the average response time and what parameters. Is that a good response time or not? But just the 6-minute delay from the time that the homeowner was contacted and then 911, that is extremely critical.
Which a volunteer fire, they drive from their homes to the department to get the truck, and then they leave.
Some of them do. Some of them may go straight.
Drive straight there, right? Yeah. Okay.
Depends how they're set up.
Okay. All right. All right, this here's got initials in it. Do you want to look at that before I say it? I mean, they can all say it anyway. DC was alerted to DR. I don't know. Yeah, skip it. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. All right, we're going to go where we've got some more down here. Molly said same thing I did. Intentionally setting a fire with people living in the house in the middle of the night, and there was no intent to kill. That makes no sense. Sounds like me, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you know, you start a fire at my house, or you start a fire at any of the officers that's in Carroll County in the middle of the night, I think they'd have a different opinion.
No doubt. True crime with Shannon. Arson is a crime.
Yes.
Period. Amen. All right. Let's see here. All right. Kevin, arson for profit. Pros will do it with nobody home. They do pre-planning, in my experiences.
Yes.
Okay.
And appreciate the emails you sent me this week, and I look forward to talking to you some more.
Kevin, just getting off shift if I repeat anything. All right, let's see here.
Thank you,
Kevin. Why would DC? Okay, I don't know about that. Okay, this thing is bouncing again.
Uh-oh.
All right. Let's see here. Teresa, I hope the local news stations have all our attention and address that offer reward fund situation.
And like I said, contact them. Let them know how you feel, and hopefully they'll. And there's hopefully the fire department does. I don't, doesn't use the funds for anything other than sending them back towards a reward.
Yeah. Molly, no intent to kill. That's like me going into a crowded theater and shooting a firearm with no intent to kill, but a bunch of people were killed. That's murder.
Yeah. Like I said,
absolutely.
The way that they phrase and the way they investigate just absolutely is a mystery.
Arctic Fox, same here. Whoever started it should be hauled off to an abandoned building and meet the same fate. IMO. Pretty much. Let's see here. Checking convictions. Wow, I agree with that. Ongoing investigation. Misinformation is harmful 100%. Let's see. It's not cold case because it's ongoing open case to the host. No profanity? At True Crime Web, so our initials okay?
No, not really right now, because like I said, we don't want to influence anyone that may have a clue of who the actual people are. So I just stay away from initials and names. Job titles, sometimes I don't have so much issue with job titles, but or the profession, but we just don't want to influence someone that may actually have the tip that's needed.
The one tip.
Yes, the one tip.
Teresa, seems to be a serial arsonist in the area and surrounding areas. Has anybody looked at that? Do you know?
Yes, there's been, I think one of the fire investigators at my actually worked on this case recently died in a fire. Absolutely unbelievable.
That makes no sense. All right. And Tammy, my son has been a captain of fire department. He paid, but he volunteered at another one. He even designed the fire truck and the fire station. That's cool.
Yeah. Like I said, I have utmost respect for firemen. Now firemen and law enforcement, we have an ongoing family feud. They aggravate us about, because we tell them, what type of person runs into a burning building. And of course they say, what type of person wants to find people with guns. But I always looked at whenever I saw a fire truck and I found one that was not being protected properly, it's like a Walmart on wheels. I mean, they have a lot of good gloves and stuff that you can get.
Just Mike, Flora fire, arson, murder case, open case is not cold ever.
I don't, in homicides and stuff, cold cases, and I know what cold case and is generally classified after 3 years by the National Institute of Justice. as a cold case. With arson and stuff, I don't know if they have those same parameters or not. I'm sure there's an arson investigator fire that they may look at that different. I don't know. Like I said, I've never worked a cold case involving arson.
All right. And Kevin, it won't be cold as long as people are fighting for these babies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah. Teresa, I don't think so, but I wonder if Delphi might have been to get attention off Flora. Not likely, but.
Yeah. And like I said, law enforcement, Carter and Holman, most certainly, they have different persons of interest, and they say there's 2 killers. And so, and different MOs and manners of death. So, yeah, it's not likely, but regardless, if likely or not, the Delphi murders most certainly did overwhelm not only the Flora fires and take interest away from them, but it did the same thing with the Karina McClurkin case that was in adjoining counties that, you know, other agencies stepping in, sending personnel, and the news that was, you know, just constantly focused upon Delphi, which is, you know, they absolutely deserve every moment they got, but these other cases deserved attention also.
And Tammy, Kevin, thank you so much for your 20 years of service. There's so much you see and do, and we agree. 20 years is a long time. All right. And peace not silenced. My stepdad was an officer, and he always said, even if the police shut the books on a case, the public can keep it open and it never goes cold. It's all about keeping the awareness open. Yeah.
And we're in different times now and everything. And like you said, it's so easy for communications and it's just that how the departments may look at it. We as individuals now, you know, we can keep records. They're at our fingertips, and the Google machines and everything that we got that you, in the old days when everything was handwritten and you was looking at paper files, paper forms, paper reports, and the way it used to be and the way it is now. Yeah, we're probably looking at, you know, that it probably never will be that cold cases are really cold cases anymore because there's so many people can communicate all the time on it. But if you go by what the classical definition of a cold case is, will they ever change it? I don't know.
All right. And Molly at Steve, are you aware if a Homeland Security agent or agents are assigned to the case?
There's references made to them that they classified this. So someone at Homeland Security or one of their agents was aware of something, because I saw some references made to that effect. And I'm, like I said, I don't know if that's something that's normal or not. I'm going to talk to some of the firemen in this in my chat here and find out what is the normal course of all the agencies that do get involved in these things and why.
All right. Checking convictions. The first steps in any investigation is the most important.
You only get one shot at it. You really do. Those first hour, first 24 hours, 48 hours, you only get one shot at those.
Mm-hmm. All right. Digital. If the girls' bodies were removed from the house and taken to the fire department, laid on the concrete floor before the coroner arrived, how would that affect the investigation? And why would they do that? That's a good question.
Well, I can see, whereas, you know, that is this the closest, most secured place that we can get them away from the scene and still work the scene, secure the scene, and get them out. Whereas I don't know what type of vehicles, transportation, where the morgue was, where the hospitals are. I'm unfamiliar with that, but sometimes for whatever reasons, and I don't know the reasons if that occurred. I haven't went into that. If that information is for that, whenever I speak and follow up with some of my professionals, I'll ask them for what reasons that occurred. But as long as it's done with certain techniques and certain body bags and protections or sheeting, there's a lot of ways to secure even victims. But if the victims are in a separate room and they die from smoke inhalation versus being died, it's one thing if they died from a physical assault and then an arson occurs and burns bodies. But from smoke inhalation and other effects, that may not affect the investigations as much as if there was a physical assault that led to their deaths.
All right, and Kevin's going to add some things. Any suspicious fire or a fire with fatalities, we use as little water as possible and do a ton of scene preservation. Every fire department has a policy. Well, almost everyone.
Yes. And once again, like I said, these are the professionals and they handle them different. He works in the fire industry and firemen, and they have certain protocols they follow. And at some points, I mean, they don't always know exactly if it's bodies involved or not. But once they realize, like I said, they have certain policies they almost always follow.
Mm-hmm. And Molly, true courage to go into a fire, so dangerous, even for trained professionals with all the equipment. My thanks to all that do that vital job.
Like I said, I've watched it all thinking, man, y'all are crazy.
Let's see here. And Kevin, fire marshals interview initial interior attack crew and deputy or chief at every fire. In fatal fires, there's a lot more people to talk to.
And like I said, everybody has protocols, just like with when we work death investigations. There's certain individuals that have certain information and they collect certain information, and there's protocols of briefing and debriefing. And so as long as those steps are taken and followed, a lot of good information can be maintained.
All right, let's see. And Kevin, in PA, we have county fire marshal, county PD handles homicides or any unnatural death.
We did the same, but now we worked along with the arson investigators and let them do their things, and they collect certain things. But once we, it's just a parallel investigation a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Why won't the mom talk to Carter?
In one of the interviews I saw where she did, and he even admits that she has communicated with them and did answer, but then he goes and says that, but we haven't talked to all of, and they won't, once again, it's which way and why, and that'll be answered at some point, but it's very confusing on that Carter wants, and I can't blame him. I mean, he's a law enforcement agency. He's trying to do an investigation, and we always want to talk to everyone all the time, unfettered and as much as possible. And sometimes, for whatever reasons, families choose to stop at some point. That either they feel offended, or they think that someone is accusatory, or they're focusing on the wrong things. So there's a lot of reasons that families and victims may at some point say, enough is enough, go do your job. I've seen it. Don't know, and from law enforcement perspective, they may view that as suspicious or unjust, but I don't know what was at, I don't know how long she spent, don't know how long the interview process was, but there was reference made that she did answer, and then there was reference made that they didn't have all of the information they wanted.
All right. Now, this Google machine has done some strange gyrations here. So, Arctic Fox, IMO, Delphi could have been solved long ago had LE been more forthcoming to the public with information.
I agree 100%. And they need to, if the strategy hasn't worked and identified a person of interest, they need to change the strategy. as soon as possible.
And Teresa, at Steve, do arsonists show signs in childhood? I'm sure they do. Fascination with fire.
Well, there's a triangle with certain personalities and psychopaths that go down certain routes. As far as the serial killers, everything from cruelty to animals, and includes arson within that. So, yeah, there's certain guidelines and certain things that have to be considered with children at that age that do go out and have a fascination with fire.
All right. And Savannah, it's critical on this case they don't release where the fire started, as this avoids a false confession.
It could be, and absolutely, they're going to maintain certain stuff that we don't know. I just, from what I saw and from what the officer said, that he did see a fire within a certain room, and which is not common, I wouldn't think, in the area he said, but we don't know where they found the accelerants at. And I don't know if they will ever disclose exactly where those accelerants were found.
Indian Paintbrush wants to know if you can get off topic that you were on Mob on John Benet. Was that you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You said you thought it was Intruder. Hit like to know why. Any chance you talk about that?
Not tonight, but actually earlier, Chris and I talked, and I think I was on a show Monday or Tuesday, whenever his 1 year anniversary with Mob Crew. I was on his 1 year anniversary show on his panel, and he invited me back for tomorrow night if he can get everything straightened out. And so we'll see which way and what cases he wants to talk. And I don't know what type of panel he's going to have tomorrow night, unless he's really busy. So we may address the John Benet case tomorrow night. I don't know how he's going to open up or whatever, but most certainly I appreciate but now we're going to focus mostly on this one Flora case for tonight.
So you can always email him.
Yeah, email me, and I most certainly would talk that, and you can relay to Chris anything and everything, because it is a fascinating case. John Benet has been, who doesn't know of that? And once again, what law enforcement did.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Teresa, do arsonists commit any other violent crimes or just the arsons?
Well, like I said, it depends on if they have certain personalities and how long they continue, because there's a lot of crimes in it. Not only that sometimes these arsonists go out, especially in the West, and they create these huge fires that destroy and kill and destroy whole communities. And you have, sometimes it's firemen that are, they are the arsonists, that they have this fascination with it. But yeah, you can have that. These people, for whatever reason, they love fire, and they have fantasies just like the psychopaths have, that go out and either destroy property, but with some of the psychopaths that murder people for certain fantasies, I'm sure it's no different for the arsonists, that they have certain fantasies.
Well, I had a good one, and then it bounced on me. Oh, here you go. Dave. Steve, do you think it's at all possible it was an accidental arson?
That's about as good wording as you can get, because that's most certainly what, and I don't even know if accidental fire is what I would look at it. I'm sure that Kevin here would probably have that. Is there such a thing as accidental arson? I don't know. I would call it an accidental fire. But like I said, I've never been, I worked with some arson investigators, and so I don't know what the proper term is for when death occurs and arson occurs. Is it ever accidental arson? It just seems that, as Steve said, oxymoron on that statement, that could it ever be an accidental arson?
All right. And just Pam, Steve, do you think there's a serial arsonist in Carroll and the surrounding counties?
I haven't looked at it that much, but I most certainly will be. I'll be getting and looking at it more detail. And I did some preliminary to see if Indiana had a higher arson rate than other states, and they weren't ranked real high. There's a lot of states that higher ranked than them for arson, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't have a cluster. I just haven't went in there and looked at what cluster there is for Indiana.
All right, so let's see here. Firefighter. That might be something. AD, there are more than 15 child death fires in Carroll County. Many similarities, usually young girls deceased. I give you something to look for.
Yeah, murder is murder. And at some point, the number of fatalities, accidental or otherwise, has to be looked at. There's something going on.
All right, let's see. Given this case their full attention. Okay, no, I can't say that thing. Did any firefighters enter from the outside steps and balcony to second floor?
I'm sure they did at some point, but none of what I saw that led to any of the information. I believe one of the officers did try to go up the back steps, but there was fire coming from a window below the steps. And in one of the reports I read that there was some type of information relayed that the children were out, and he backed away from it and didn't proceed.
All right, and Dave's got a suggestion. I'd love to see Steve, Cop Facts, and Gonzo do a show.
I've seen Cop Facts and Gonzo. I saw them on another creative show, on a couple of creative shows last couple of weeks, and I need to reach out and talk. And I've got Cop Facts email, and I can't remember if I emailed him or not. And I don't know if I've heard back from him or not. We get so many emails, and always contacting, trying to figure out. And I most certainly would love to sit down and talk to, especially Cop Facts. I don't know that much about Gonzo, but I do know a little bit about Cop Facts.
All right. There's a great channel that did a whole presentation on fire death statistics and how something is going on in that country. Should be county. Look up Carroll County burning algorithm of a killer on YouTube.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. You can look for that. Let's see here. Were firefighters at the station, or do volunteer firefighters go from home to station to fire?
I believe it was there was no firefighters at this station that night, because the police officer went to the station, got the air tanks, and then came back. But it's like I said, it's only a block away, and if you look at the timeline, he was only gone for 2 or 3 minutes, so he had pretty good reaction time to get there. Whereas if there were firemen, they would have responded immediately. You would think.
You would think. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Steve, do you think the reward monies would be better used for a PI, given rewards fund percentage not that great with solving cases?
That's interesting. I don't know what a PI could do as far as, the people within that community. Once again, law enforcement says, and even the families say, that someone out there knows. And if they do know, why don't they come forward? I know it was in the early morning hours, and most certainly whoever set the fire knows. And there's a possibility that whoever the person that did set the fire, that some of their family may suspect it because they know where they would have been that night. And hopefully at some point, if Hallman or whoever, that someone will step forward, if not for the right reason of just having this information, not even for the reward, to do the right thing and step forward. But at some point, someone hopefully will step forward and claim that reward.
And thank y'all for reporting the bad dude.
Oh, we have a bad dude again?
We did. All right. Did the house have electric furnace or gas?
Don't know that yet. That's a good question. I'm sure in the depositions that would be covered. I'm looking forward to seeing some of those.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Let's see here. Kevin, you sound like my house, Kevin. Always a pot of hot coffee on at the fire station.
I'm telling you, Waffle House is one of the greatest places in the world. You can get coffee and still can 24/7.
Mm. Support with Steffa. Hey, Steffa, firemen are the best cooks. I used to visit my brother at the firehouse just for a delicious dinner.
I'm sure they're all across the board when they first get there.
Oh, see, we got this here. Dating site thing.
No.
And then I get an error, so I stick him in timeout. Ah, looky here.
Thank you.
Sloopy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry it took so long for me to see it.
Yeah.
Told you this stuff is bouncing around.
I'm telling you, if this internet stuff ever catches on.
Yeah. No kidding. All right. Arctic Fox, the creators on YouTube have the power to use their platforms to put pressure on LE agencies to do something in cases where they aren't acting and to keep these cases alive. And we must, and we should do that. And that's, like I said, that's one of the reasons that this show tonight was, is we created it for that, a certain amount of attention should be brought forth to all these victims regardless. And checking convictions, you said it. Thank you so much for all the insight and facts. Have a great evening. Thank you, mods and chatters. And once again, thank you, Checking Convictions, for all you do with True Crime with Sunshine and Arctic Fox and Levelhead and all those. Y'all have some great content and some great conversations. Yep. All right. All right, and Kevin, I've never heard of anything remotely close to removing bodies from scene to a fire department floor. The most contained place on earth, probably contaminated. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know. Makes no sense to me either. Like I said, I didn't know and don't know what some of the why that decision would be made, but most certainly he would know, and we'll discuss that. If you'll send me an email on that, and we'll get in contact with each other directly next week and work on that. Okay. If you want to, I appreciate it. All right, let's see here. And y'all help Peace Not Silent. She's trying to get her community page. Help her out. Go jump on. Marvin Frank talking about Flora tomorrow. All right. Teresa at Steve, why do you think the 911 call isn't released? Well, I'm telling you, there has to be something, and there's so many different possibilities. But there's something in that call that they absolutely deem critical. And for maintaining it is not going to look good regardless of what it is when it comes out. But
it's just absolutely unbelievable why they would do it for whatever the reason. It doesn't matter what information was there. That is information that was made by someone calling in that call that had certain information, regardless of who it was about and regardless of what it was about, that we as the public most certainly should have access to.
All right. And Sandra Christensen, a firefighter I know, fell through a sabotaged stairs in an arson fire and broke his back. Lucky to be alive.
I'm telling you.
Holy cow.
And I don't know at what level of the house damage on the interior was, and because certain residential and the firemen would know and be able to recognize certain conditions of was the house ready to collapse or not. I don't know how extensive the damage was inside the house, although it's been sitting there, standing there for 5 years now. It's still there, so it hadn't fell in. But they would evaluate the situation and the dangers, and for whatever reasons, if the bodies were moved, I have no idea at this point. I haven't seen and don't know the investigative report of what happened during the time frame of the investigations, how evidence was recovered, how the bodies were recovered, how the bodies were secured, and how and where and when the bodies were transferred.
All right. And let's see here. Digital. The aunt was on video saying an alarm would have awoken the girls and they would have run.
I believe that of the upstairs fire alarm, it didn't have batteries in it. And I think that was noted in one of the reports I saw.
All right. And accelerant could be improper storage of gasoline in the kitchen near gas stove, but that isn't arson.
Oh, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what they meant by that. And most certainly that will be exposed at some point. Don't know.
Yeah. No kidding. Okay. Kevin, no accidental arson.
Okay.
See there?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No.
Had a terrible case here about 10 years ago, multiple fatalities. Guy lit paper towels and threw into the house. He's rotting. Yeah. So at least you know.
Yeah. I didn't, and like I said, within the firefighting industry and everything, their terminology is different a little bit than law enforcement. And I don't ever want to misquote, misspeak on any specialty. If I have knowledge of it, firsthand knowledge of it, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you I don't.
All right. And Molly, it seems like, quote, accidental arson would be, quote, negligent fire risk activity, end quote, or something like that, like setting off fireworks too close to a house or something, like kids having fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, reckless conduct and all the other stuff that leads into accidental fires and unintentional fires. I'm sure there's a broad vocabulary of how firemen address those issues.
And Dave, you used to do a lot of electrical work, and you would be surprised how many fires are caused by homeowners doing electrical work on their own.
I've been lit up a time or two myself.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have. All right, let's see here. Missed siren. Was the family a target? Were there other reports of problems in the neighborhood?
As we look in, I don't know, and they would know. We don't know what questions with the neighborhood canvas. At this time, I don't know. Is that in some of the depositions? I don't know yet, but once I get access to those, be able to answer more clearly on that.
And Kevin, actually not uncommon for tenants to remove detector batteries because they're a nuisance, go off while they're cooking. They need to be hardwired.
Never thought of that, but being in the industry, you would know.
That's true. See, I don't know why I can't get rid of that crap. Okay, everybody's reported this bot troll. I can't get rid of it. I don't know how to get it off there. Let's see here. Digital. Yes, they were on the second floor. Their apartment included the ground floor and one room, the girls' bedroom upstairs.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awful.
It is. All right, getting close.
All right, let's see here. Yep, let's see here. I'm trying to get to the bottom. Dave, big difference between cop coffee and firehouse coffee. Well, this is mama coffee.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever. I'm trying to think. Did I ever go in and never even thought about the fire department coffee for whatever reason?
And thank you so much, Jane. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot.
Y'all are the best. Y'all are the best. Let's see here. Molly, anyone know who donated the money to pay for the little girl's funeral? What a wonderful person, so they could be buried in honor with dignity.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Did you read that?
No, I didn't.
Did you know who did the funeral?
No.
Okay.
Block that again if we can.
Well, I can't see it's in
timeout.
It's in timeout.
Okay.
CJK, when will you be a guest on the mob?
I think we sent emails back and forth today. He's trying to figure out what times for tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow, or if he's busy, it may be later, because they're still looking for, I don't know what his schedule is on the Dylan Rounds case. But earlier in the week, we had made plans for Thursday night.
SB 74, do we know if the Flora home was well insured?
I do not. I think that would probably be covered in the deposition. And
I would think so. I would think so. Marv and Frank said the TV station won a lawsuit to have it released, and they still won't release it.
Yeah, there's appeals. Well, there's appeals courts and all different type of appeals and different hearings and different findings. Crazy.
All right. And Molly, does anyone know if the mother of the girls has filed a civil suit?
There was a civil suit against some of the like I think refrigerator or stove. It was some of the appliances in the house that they had filed that possibly could have started the fire. But I think those were settled out and found not to be the cause of the fire.
All right. And Tar Heel Girl is, I contacted Fox 59. Please take a minute and do the same. The hard-earned money was donated for the girls.
Absolutely. And this is them. And that's their email. And that's their phone numbers. And most certainly contact them as much as you can. And express that thought.
You got to go because you got another appointment to do.
Yeah. Well, guys, we appreciate everything y'all have done tonight. And coming and listening, and let's try to do everything to settle and create attention for this case. And most certainly, if you know anyone in the area or you have any information, contact the local authorities, turn in that information on any suspects or anything that you think might help to solve the case. But also contact anyone you can or you think of to make sure that the reward money is put to where it's supposed to be, possibly leading to the information of that will solve this case. But we thank y'all, and we thank everybody that supporting this channel. It means a lot, and as we progress and we try to step out and do some more things in the community on other cases, we will. We're actually going to be looking at Cyclops this week, looking at a cluster, and bring some information on and start applying the information to our volunteers, which we want to thank for everything they're doing on the Cyclops part of this.
Another state went in today.
Another state went in today. And so as we continue to expand with that, we most certainly owe all our volunteers a lot of thanks. And but I'll see y'all this weekend on Saturday, and maybe on Mob Crew tomorrow night. We'll put it on community page if we are. And like I said, go out there and check out on some of these other channels and assist them in all the ways that you can. But see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.